Back again. Here we are, doing another mixing stream. I wasn't sure, again, if we were going to be able to do this or not, but we are. In fact, we may even get 2 in today, so we may have to take a little bit of a break later while I have a couple of students, but then we should be able to close out the day with yet another stream, so that'll be fun. Okay, let's not waste too much time. Let's get right into it, changing over to the main screen there. And taking a peek at where we're at. Oh, Majennica's here already. She said, whoa, that was cool. Have you never seen my intro before? That's pretty funny. I have actually had that for a long time. Those are on, that particular intro is on most of the Sarvik streams from way back when we were still calling ourselves Kiss-ish even. The music is me, but the little animatic thing is, fairly unsurprisingly, that is Juan from Lux Studio that does most of our lyric videos that did that. So yeah, fantastic work. Love that. I didn't know you'd never seen that before. That's funny. Okay, so we're back here looking at Poison in the Well. We are still on this song as far as getting things working. The first song always takes the longest, especially when it's a long song. But we're planning on doing quite a bit of work on pretty much everything. So we can count on most of the songs taking a minute. Excuse me. Okay, let me remind myself where we're at. Yes, okay. We are looking at the drum master. The last thing we did yesterday was make sure that the drum master was peaking no higher than -7. And we are currently sitting at -6.9, which is good enough, close enough. Again, I did make a small change off stream. That isn't something I'm planning on doing every time, but I did mention at the end of the last stream that I was going to take some time to go through and try and get rid of some of the cymbal bleed that was suddenly jumping at us, which I did. Dad's here too. He says, I am here evermore, Quoth the Raven. Is it Quoth or Quoth? It's probably Quoth, right? I don't know. Yes, indeed. So what we did, and there may still be other ones that are jumping out at us that we may need to get rid of, but the snare was really bad, particularly the part where Eli's hitting the snare over and over. It's not really a blast beat, but it's, hitting the snare a bunch of times in a row, and the China cymbal was really bad. The China cymbal had bled into the snare mic really, really bad, and it was pretty obvious. So, Quoth. It is Quoth. Okay. Now we know. Or is that Quath? Oh yeah, Quoth. That's hard to say when you don't have teeth. So, what we did to fix that then was swap out Telos. I know. I hope those guys don't watch any of these videos. I don't know why they would, but if they did, they're going to find me being pretty frustrated with their plugin over and over. So we got rid of Telos on the snare and put Virtual Mix Rack in. The very first preset I tried sounded great, got rid of the bleed immediately. So no Telos on our drums. No Telos at all on the drums. Okay, so getting back to where we're actually at here, we need to put some effects on the drum master channel. Just kind of some like final compression, glue, as you hear people say a lot with that, just kind of making everything feel like it's one instrument rather than several instruments. And we are going to try another Black Salt Audio plugin for this. They made 4 plugins, all of which that I got. They make more than that, but the 4 that I got were that silencer, which is supposed to be a really good drum gate, the Telos drums that we've been trying to work over and over, a de-esser, which is something that does what it sounds like. It's a weird name, but it tries to get rid of the S sounds and the hard consonants in vocals. I have been using that a lot on mixes and getting good results. There's no reason that shouldn't work on this. And also they make a drum bus master thing. Now again, I have a preset in Virtual Mix Rack that I usually use that I like a lot, so we know we can come back and use that if their thing doesn't work. I've tried it on another thing and it worked pretty well, but I also liked what Telos did on the other thing, so I don't know. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. The good news is, even if it's not great, we have a great thing we can fall back on. Here we go, Black Salt Audio drum bus, and we are going to run this in dual mono. And that's another change that I've made recently, running things in dual mono. I may have explained this in the first episode. Somebody pointed out to me recently that if you run compression on your master buses in dual mono rather than in mono or in stereo, it kind of sets two compressors, one for the left, one for the right, and they're independent of each other, compressing those two sides as needed independent. And that made a lot of sense to me. So we're running this thing in dual mono, and we're going to hit this couple button so that any change we make for the left side is going to be made on the right side as well. We will have to put in presets for both sides. I have discovered that. So we have some folders here that we can look at. All of these are supposed to be pretty much good stuff for the drum bus. So I guess we'll see. Oh, some of these are meant for parallel compression. That's good to know. So we could experiment with that on the Drum Crush on a different project. Some of these are for room. Yeah, let's just kind of start the song and see if any of these jump out at us. Again, this is probably going to make the drums a lot louder than they actually need to be. Maybe they won't, but it might. That's something we want to be very careful of. The human ear tends to confuse louder with better, and that is usually because louder, when you start getting stuff in the eardrums to a point that you might damage your ears, your eardrums and your brain start filtering out details so that you don't get injured. And then if you're not hearing all the details, you're not hearing the full picture. So a lot of those nasty details can get filtered out. So we want to keep that in mind. Not if it makes the drums loud, that doesn't necessarily mean better. So let's try this Forester drum bus preset first. Ooh, my volume was really hot. Turn that down so I don't break my speakers or my ears. Here we go. I think we got something there. I did, if you were watching, you probably also noticed I brought Virtual Mix Rack up again. I went ahead and muted, why did I say that so weird? Muted the Black Salt Audio drum bus and put my normal thing on, the Virtual Mix Rack thing that I've been using, just to kind of A-B them back and forth. I do think I prefer the Black Salt Audio drum bus in this case, at least for the time being. There were several presets in there that sounded pretty good, but they were starting to get a little bit too heavy in the low end. They were starting to cover the bass guitar. The bass drum particularly was starting to get a little bit overwhelming. But here we've got this, which is... the preset is called Drum Bus Starter, and it's from Jordan. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's the main guy. I think he's the guy who designed this. So we've got that. You can see it's not compressing a huge amount. We weren't jumping up real far, which is totally fine. The other thing we want to make sure here is that we're not jumping above -7 now. We know that we were up at -6.9. Oh, no. I just ruined something by hitting enter. What did I do? Somehow I changed the preset. That's really annoying because I did a couple of things to it. I think it was that. Okay, well, good to know. Don't hit enter while this plugin is open or you will change something. Okay. So anyway, we're not getting a huge amount of compression or anything. But we do want to make sure that since we were hitting -6.9 before, that we're still hitting right around that before we move on. Luckily, this should be the last time. Yeah, thanks. Way to go. Yeah. This should be the last time that we have to listen through the entire song to get a level check, basically. Now, once this drum master is done with, we can kind of move through the rest of the song without worrying about it so much. So let's go ahead and give the whole song a play here, and we'll make sure that this isn't pushing the drums harder than they need to. One second. I did just remember something else I said at the end last time that I did not do. We need a compressor on the kick and snare master because the kick and snare master was jumping up higher than it should have, even though none of the individual channels were. So let's load up some Get Good Smash and Grab here. We're going to put it in snare mode this time, even though it's kick and snare going in there. Snare is kind of the main thing going on here. Let's do it just a little bit of saturation. Let's do maybe 10% saturation and see where that puts us. But we're going to do the normal thing I do with this plugin. Get it in Smash, get it in Grab, see which one sounds better. So again, we're looking for no more than 3 decibel reduction. We're not looking for a big reduction. We just want to make sure that when he hits both at the same time, it doesn't jump out really hard. Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded men. I'm not hearing a massive difference between the two. The way it affects the snare is a little bit different depending on which one. I kind of prefer the smash, but again, it's not such a big difference that I think it matters all that much. I do think that the snare could use just a hair more high end, not a bunch. See, we're at 3.3. Let's try 4.
They won't listen to you. There's a reason they withdrew. You stopped making sense. Started constantly taking offense. You can't hate a person's life. They think they'll come to God despite all the things you put them through. They don't think of God. They remember you.
It's not easy to admit the world sees right through us and they rejected it. The voice of the fanatics has changed what they perceive. The truth that you preach is not what they're willing to believe. Guardians of His word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of glory have
Okay, I think we're good there. Now, I do know our drums master had peaked at 6.3 right before that first chorus hit, so we don't need to listen to the beginning. We might as well just see if we can turn it down, or maybe this compressor we've just put on there fixed it. Let's take a look.
guardian.
Yeah, so just a little bit. You can see we're at 6.5. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this virtual mix rack so that it's not taking up processing space. Let's turn this down. Yeah, can we affect? I'd really like to just be able to type. Yeah, there we go. We'll start it right there again and see how far we go.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but
Very nice. Yeah, right at 7. So perfect on that front. Let's go ahead and leave that for now. Definitely not saying that that is 100% how the drums are going to sound, but that is a really good starting point. Just out of curiosity, where did we hit over here? Oh, so we're hitting pretty hard over here on this, which is where we also want this to be no higher than -7. So we're coming into that compressor a little bit hot. So we may want to take that down. That could change pretty easily, but good to know, because that compressor is also kind of affecting how the overall instrumentation sounds. We don't want anything messing with our context, so let's bring all of our master faders down just a bit to compensate for that, and then if we have to bring them back up later, we will. If we bring those down like 1.5, we'll be doing good. Yep, all looks good. Okay, good for now. Okay, moving on. Our next target is the bass. Getting the bass guitar to sound the way we want it to, and also getting it to come in and sit with the bass guitar, or sit with the bass drum, so that they're not arguing with each other very much. That is where we're at, where we want to go with that. So first off, we're going to get rid of most of the plugins that we have on here. We're going to leave this compressor because we do want the bass guitar to be pretty flat going into Virtual Mix Rack, which is what we're going to be using on this. So looks like we had some settings on here already. I kind of want to take a look at how much they were compressing the bass guitar. I'm looking for probably -5, if not a little bit more even. And then okay, and I've got the mix knob pulled down already. So I was already kind of thinking about this when we were tracking. I think I want this at 75% though. Let's jump back to the beginning and take a look and see how much is this compressing the bass as it sits. So yeah, we've got a couple of different things in there. I adjusted the attack. I don't want the compressor to affect the pick noise. I just want more tone. So getting about 5 decibels of reduction, only 75% on the mix knob. So we're basically parallel compressing. Basically, we're still getting a little bit of the uncompressed signal in there to make sure that we're not killing the dynamic. But other than that, fairly flat response. After that, we're going to go ahead and stick on good old Virtual Mix Rack, so that we can take a look at all of the bass guitar presets and pick one that suits best. Again, Virtual Mix Rack has a habit of making things very loud at first, so we want to remember that. We're not, louder doesn't mean better. We're listening specifically to the way the different presets affect how the bass sounds so that we can pick the best thing that makes it fit where it needs to. Speaking of that, before we even look at presets, we're going to go ahead and open up an EQ that's going to sit right after this Virtual Mix Rack. We're going to do the same thing we did to the bass drum as far as getting like a 35 high pass, so we're just getting rid of the sub bass information stuff. And then we're going to put on a note at 60 hertz. If I could hit the right buttons, a node at 80 hertz, and a node at 115. We want the Q on all these to be 2, which basically means that this is a very narrow band. We're not affecting a bunch of frequencies. We're kind of focusing in. 60 is where the bass drum lives, so we're going to take a 3 decibel cut there. 80 is where we want the bass to live, so we're going to do a 3 decibel boost there. 115 is usually kind of some boxy frequencies that tend to get boosted when you do 80 boost, so we're going to cut another 3 there. 115 might also be where we want to put like the low strings or the synths if they're low enough, low pianos. All of these things we're going to have to carve out of the bass and the bass drum, basically. So we did the opposite. On the bass drum, we boosted 60 and cut 80, and then on this one, we cut 60, boost 80. Cody says, what do you mean louder doesn't mean better? Is my whole recording life a lie? Yes. Well, look at the bright side there. I mean, if everybody always plays it loud, which is what you want, it'll always sound good, right? Yes. Okay, so we've got several bass guitar presets we're going to check out here. We're going to just pick the one that sounds the best. We've got that EQ on already, so that's going to be affecting things no matter what. But do keep in mind, this is probably going to make the bass guitar really, really loud. The very first preset. I did like the last one as well. Both of them made the bass quite a bit louder, so I pulled this trim knob down until they seemed like they were sitting appropriately, just so that we could judge not based on loudness, but based on how it sat in the mix. I think I like this one better, but I think both of them could have worked. This one does introduce kind of a weird, almost honky frequency that I'm not a big fan of. So we wanna search that out. That bass is knocking and riffing. I love it. Absolutely. Yes. Agreed. Let's see if we can find that weird frequency. Let's do a little bit of level matching here. This one we're just going to do by ear rather than by the peak meter. So basically we're just going to be turning Virtual Mix Rack on and off and adjusting this trim knob until it sounds pretty much the same regardless of whether the plug-in is on or off, volume-wise. Yeah, Justin says bass in all caps. I love it. Yes. Okay, yeah, we're getting there. Pretty good with that so far. Okay, the next thing that we're going to add, now we've got our compressor giving us nice flat signal, virtual mix rack kind of doing everything, compression, EQ, saturation, all that good stuff. We've got our channel EQ after that. That's making sure we keep our cut at 60 and our boost at 80, also getting rid of that weird little honky frequency that we heard. And then we need a multipressor at the end. Should probably come up with a different term for that frequency, shouldn't I? Okay, multipression. We've talked about this a billion times. Compressing different frequency ranges. In the bass, this is just as important as it is in the bass drum. We want to make sure that we're not getting any really low or low mid or high mid or really high jumping out at us suddenly in the track. We want it to be nice and even all the way across the board. And it's already not too bad. Like I said, this was recorded direct. This is not through an amp. This is direct from the bass to the Digitech BP 350 or something like that. Justin might know that. Dad and Justin are both in here. This was Justin's pedal, I think, actually, and then into the computer. So that thing already has compression running in it. So right away we recorded with, a pretty nice compressed signal. So we didn't need it to go crazy. It's part of the reason why we only did 75% on that compressor at first. So let's take a look. We're going to do this the exact same way we did the other multipressors. We are not looking to change the way this sounds on the average hits, right? We just want the meter for each one of these things to be bumping just a tiny little bit so that we know that when he hits something particularly hard or if he goes down to that low B, we're not getting too much buildup of extra bass frequencies down in that range.
Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have lied.
we're good with that for now. Yes, Cody asked if we were printing from the pedal or not. Yes. Yes, indeed. Bass, yes. Guitars, no. I think I might have talked about this in the very first episode, but I'm not sure if you were in here when we do that. You guys, most of you who are in here know me. I like for everything to be real. These are 100% acoustic drums, no samples. We used to record using amps. James had a half-stack cabinet. I think it was a Line 6, some sort of Line 6 that we used on most of the old band stuff. We recorded it for Paramnesia, but we didn't use it. And then also I've got my Digitech RP 500 or RP 1000, either way, that I used to use for most of the stuff. And right around, I think it was during the mixing of Paramnesia, we transitioned into using the Neural DSP Archetype Petrucci, which is less real, you know what I mean? It's certainly taking that road, the virtual amp rather than the real amp. But it sounds really good. Let's face it, it was simpler to use. It absolutely was. So all of the guitars, most of the guitars, the main rhythms, James's guitars, my guitars, and the leads were using that Neural DSP. The cleans that we heard kind of near the end of the song are still my Digitech pedal. That's just that sound I love. There's no reason to go away from it. The clean presets, even when I've messed with stuff in that Neural DSP, don't beat the kind of combined, with all of the different sounds I use on the pedal. So we're still using the Digitech pedal for that. And also Dad's got the Digitech pedal going for the bass. Yes. Okay. So we're good there. We don't really need anything on the bass master channel. The bass guitar is the only thing going to that master, so there's no further things that we wouldn't just put right on the bass channel. We may later put a different EQ on there, but I think for now we're good. So moving into rhythm guitars. Now, for the most part, I'm pretty happy with how these sound as is, I think. But we do want to do some extra things. So we've got a quad track here. James has got two, one in the left, one in the right. I've got two, one in the left, one in the right. We're often playing the same thing, but definitely not always. This is something we're going to come back to once we've done sound design for the entire song. We're going to come back and do volume automation for everything, and we're going to be paying very special attention to these rhythm guitars for any time that I'm doing something different from James. We want to make sure those remain in balance. Yes, Cody says he has the Tim Henson plugin from Neural. Yeah. I was curious, since a lot of my new stuff has the 80s guitar tones, so I'm always looking for new plugins. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Neural is killing it right now. All the different presets you can get. I thought about getting the Corey Wong preset recently. Speaking of clean stuff, I mean, that's Wolfpack stuff is very much funk, so it's not something you would think would go in here, but Prog is all about mixing elements of different genres. So if a funk sound sounds good, you bet we're going to use a funk sound. Didn't end up getting it, but still kind of thinking about it. Let's take a listen to how these rhythm guitars sound in solo right now so that we can talk about some of the things that we're almost definitely going to have to do to it. They are starting to get a little bit buried in the mix, the rhythm guitars, which is definitely not something you want in this genre. When we're talking any sort of metal, a lot of that comes from what the rhythm guitars are doing, and I have often been criticized for not having them loud enough. I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to mix to everybody's taste, but we're going to do our best to make sure these slot in where we want them and they are heard well enough. So let's check out what they sound like here. So a couple of things jumping out at me right away, and we are listening to a very specific part. It's not like all the guitars throughout every song are going to be that super fast-picking, palm-muted kind of thrash thing. So this isn't something that this is something that a multipressor will fix because it's not going to be consistent for the entire track. We're getting some build-up in the low-end frequencies, not a lot, we're definitely getting a lot of buildup in the high end just for this part because there's a lot of pick stuff going on there. So anytime, if we end up putting a little boost in the high end for, getting a little bit more aggression out of this part is suddenly going to sound like unintelligible. You're not going to hear that E note. You're going to hear the pick hitting the string, which is not really what we want. We want a little bit of it, maybe not that much. We are, at the moment, EQing and multipressing each channel individually. You can see we're dropping 70 hertz and below off of there. We're high passing there. Honestly, we could just about do more than that. I think both James and I have that same EQ. Yeah, dropping 70 hertz. And then we are also multipressing only the low end. Anything 200 hertz and below, we're multipressing, and this is targeting palm mutes. That's all it's doing. It's not looking to change the sound. It's not looking to get rid of the bass frequencies in the sound. It's just there to catch. If we palm mute, it grabs those rising low-end frequencies that naturally happen when you palm mute and pushes them back down. Now, we're doing that on each individual channel, but we will absolutely need to do it again on the master channel because having all 4 guitars going into one, those bass frequencies, even though we're kind of taming them individually, still kind of tend to build up. So we're going to want to multi-press, probably first thing. We're going to multi-press. And we're going to go ahead and multi-press all 4 bands here. And I think we're going to leave it at 160 instead of jumping up to 200. We'll multi-press slightly differently on the main channel. But we need to make sure we're catching palm mutes when all 4 tracks are hitting this master, catching the palm mutes and making sure those bass frequencies don't get crazy. And then we're going to want to make sure that we're getting a reading during a quote-unquote normal part, of the high end, so that we can set our meter to just bounce just a little bit on that high end stuff, so that when we come back to this beginning and all that pick stuff is happening, it should be pushing back on that a little bit. So let's jump up to chorus 2. I think we're just hitting big open power chords throughout most of that. So that should give us a good kind of like average reading for these 4 bands. So you can see that low end jumping when we palm mute. Yeah. You can also hear, just right off the bat, that when we palm mute, the bass frequencies aren't jumping out at us, right? It sounds the same regardless of whether we're palm muting or not, other than the fact you can tell we're palm muting. So we're not getting rid of performance, we're just making it more even. Now, I definitely saw our high end, this 4th band up here, jumping a little bit on the regular stuff. So let's see, if we jump back to the beginning, is that touching those pick hits at all? Not really. We're getting a little bit more. So a couple of things that we can talk about as to what we're adjusting to try and fix this. This top box right here that says 34.5, it's probably too small to read on most screens, is how often the compressor activates. The bottom box is how much it compresses when it activates. So it was still kind of like we're jumping quite a bit even during normal sections, which we don't necessarily want. So we want to take this number up so that it's activating less, but this number also should go up so that when it activates, it's compressing harder. So we get a little bit more compression, but not on just like everything. There. Yeah, so there we're starting to hear the note more than we're hearing that nasty pick noise at the top. We could probably stand to do a little bit more on this range as well. Okay, another thing that we're going to go ahead and add here is a general compressor. Now this really doesn't need to do a whole lot. We're already doing quite a bit of compression. The Neural DSP plugin has compression built into it. So as you can see, if we take a look at these tracks, which are these ones that are lit up blue here, you can see that there's not a lot of spots where it's like jumping up suddenly louder than everything else, right? So we're doing pretty good here. We don't need to go crazy with compression. If we're not careful here, we're going to start hearing this compression, and that is something that I want to make sure that I am avoiding. I don't want to hear the compression. I want it to sound good. I don't want to hear the reasons it's sounding good, right? So as you can see, we don't need to go crazy with compression here. We're looking pretty compressed normally. We've got that multipressor doing its work. So when we put a new compressor on here, again, this is kind of a safety net compressor. We're not looking for this to do anything other than if the buildup of frequencies from all four guitars happen to come together in a way that causes some sort of spike somewhere, this catches it and pushes back down. So having said that, we are definitely not looking for anything more than like 3 decibels of reduction here, maybe 2. We're probably going to want like a 50% knee. We'll do some auto release here, and we're going to want a fairly quick attack here. We don't want the pick sound to be affected by the compressor, just the actual tone. So we can increase a little bit of that tone if this is even doing anything at all. Let's go for that second chord. I think I'm good with all that. So we've got multi-pression, compression. The last thing that we're going to do on these for now is we're going to grab an EQ here, and we are going to slot out 70. And this is for the bass guitar and for the bass drum. So this is theoretically going to help us push these guitars louder without the guitars being in the way of the bass guitar and the bass drum, because we've taken out this area here around 60 and 80 where our fundamental frequencies for the bass drum and the bass guitar are living based on our EQs. So because we've taken out 70 there, we're getting rid of a little bit, so that we should theoretically be able to push these guitars a little bit louder without everything getting in the way of it. Let's test that theory, shall we? already you can see those guitars, suddenly they're not buried anymore. We're hearing them better. We didn't stop hearing the bass guitar because we pushed the rhythm guitars louder, which is very nice. Another thing that we can go ahead and do in anticipation later, and we may change this, we're going to take a little slot out of 1200 on the guitars. Not much. Let's just start with 1.5 decibels because we're going to do a boost right there probably on the lead vocals. Kind of looking for that same thing. The lead vocals and the rhythm guitars tend to take up a lot of the same frequencies depending on who your singer is. My voice is going to interact with those guitars a lot more than Majennica's will, but slotting out that 1200, not by much, we're not getting rid of it, and then boosting in that same area in the vocals should allow us to have both of those things in the mix without them overpowering each other. Let's go ahead and unzoom this. There we go. Okay, next is our clean guitars. Now, I'm not sure that anything needs to be done different to the actual channels. I am finding it interesting that we don't have low end taken out of most of these. Let's go ahead and put a high pass on most of these. Let's go clear up to 100 there, and we're just going to leave that at 18 decibels so it's not like a real hard cutoff. Yeah, actually, we want that EQ to be before the delay there. And we'll just kind of copy that across the board. Usually I do that sort of move before I record. I'm kind of surprised I didn't in this case. Okay, the acoustic simulator has compression. And then our actual acoustics have EQ and compression both. I'm going to swap. I think in this case, I want the EQ first. And that's a pretty hefty EQ. Let's kind of take a listen to what's going on there with the EQ. Is my mic still coming through here? Yes, okay. I'm always so worried that when I solo something that I'm going to forget to solo this mic, because this mic is also running through Logic. Okay, clean guitars. We need to jump up here to where the clean guitars are. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with how those acoustics sound. Take a moment to see exactly what's going on here, because often, this is 8 clean guitars, by the way, in various states of panning. Usually they're either hard left or hard right, or 50% left or 50% right. 8 tracks, 2 in my kind of normal Mr. Clean sound, 2 in the ballad kind of 80s chorusy sound, 2 acoustic simulators, and 2 actual acoustics. Oh yes, Cody asked what acoustic did I record with. This is a kind of fairly new acquisition. Let me just bang it on everything. That is this acoustic right here. This is a Luna, I think. Lag, not Luna, Lag. This I got from Dr. Rock. It is a classical acoustic, so it's got the 3 nylon strings on the bottom. This is all over this album, honestly. Some songs I used regular, normal, it'd be a Breed Love acoustic. This particular song and several of the other ones we'll hear in other episodes, darn it, is this classical Lag. Really, really enjoy how this one sounds. Okay, so what do we actually need to do to this stuff? And the answer is kind of the same as the Rhythm Guitar Master. We want to do a little bit of multi-pression. It's probably not even going to do anything, but it'll be there as a safety net. A little bit of normal compression, since there's so many tracks going into this, just in case anything jumps out too hard. And then we're going to put that EQ in to chunk out a little bit of 70. Cody says he used to own a Lag Classical. Loved it more than my Fender and even more than my Taylor. Yeah, these things are great. I mean, this is... I'm not sad at all that that's mostly what Bach de Rock carries now as far as acoustic guitars. Even the regular acoustic guitars I played over there sounded really good. That one was... certainly wasn't $1,000, but it was kind of close to that price point. Very worth the money. Definitely sounds good. Okay, so let's take a look at some multi-pression here. Mostly not activating, but it'll be there if we need it. Let's get a little bit of compression overall, and just like with the rhythm guitars, we're really not looking for this to be like insane. Ooh, you know what? I want to put the compressor on those rhythm guitars in dual mono. I should have thought of that. Hit the couple there. Did that erase what I had on there? No. Let me make sure that didn't mess anything up. Because these are, nothing's in the center, everything's panned left and right, we should probably be compressing the left and right channels individually. Yeah, seems fine. It just occurred to me as I was about to do that on the clean channel that should be on both. Okay, so for our regular compressor, let's go in dual mono. We're going to couple this so that any change we make in the left is the same in the right. So we're going to have the same settings for the left and the right, but because the audio from the left channel and the right channel is different, it will hit the compressor different and theoretically cause it to compress differently and make the whole thing sound a lot more even. Okay, so for acoustic and clean guitars, we want a mostly soft knee. As far as knee settings, I usually try to keep in mind the idea that if it's a very percussive instrument, we want a hard knee, and if it's a softer instrument, like a vocal, for example, we want a soft knee. And if it's something that's kind of in between, like a guitar can have very percussive things going on with the pick, but also very melodic things, so we want mostly soft knee, but because there's a little bit of that percussive stuff with the pick, we'll set it at 0.8. So we can see the knee over here as soon as the threshold and the ratio are messed with. It's this area right here, which is why they call it the knee. So if we pull this down, you can see it becomes a hard knee. This area down here represents no compression, and this area up here represents compression. So it kind of affects when does the compression take place? At what point on the signal path does it start compressing? Is it a hard point or is it kind of a soft point? So with these guitars, we're going to make it mostly soft but a little bit hard. Let's be honest with this sort of thing. I could probably put that pretty much wherever I wanted and it wouldn't make a big difference. You know what I mean? It's debatable if I left that at 0 if it would make an audible difference, you know. But we'll go with the theory, you know, that theory is theoretically correct, so we'll do it. All right, also when I'm setting compressor settings, usually what I'll do is I'll compress really hard so that I can set up my attack. We can hear really clearly what is not being compressed, and we can adjust the attack knob accordingly. In this case, we're kind of targeting the initial transient, the noise of the pick hitting the string. About there. just like with the rhythm guitars, we're looking for this to be more of a safety net than anything else. We're not looking to change the sound or get like that compressor pump that you can get out of certain kinds of music. We're looking for maybe a decibel or two of reduction so that if there's a particularly loud thing that jumps through, it'll compress harder than that and catch it. Level match. Go for a little bit less compression. Drop the mix knob a little bit too. I was kind of hearing the compressor work, and I don't want to. If it already sounded smooth, I'd rather not have the compressor on it than hear it jumping. So as far as that EQ, if these clean guitars were only in this section we're listening to right now, I would not worry about slotting out that 70 because it never would interact with the bass drum or the bass guitar anyway. But because this stuff continues playing during our kind of finale chorus, which is a heavier version of the clean thing, we do want to make sure that we give this that same space. About a 3 decibel cut at 70 with a fairly wide Q, not super big, so that it's not arguing with the bass drum or the bass guitar, so that we can push these things loud enough. I really want to be conscientious of that when we come back with volume automation, that we can hear that these clean guitars are in this chorus. I don't want them to be, super in the front, but I definitely want to know that they're there. They're not just there because, you know what I mean, like, oh, it's a heavy version of the same thing. Well, we got to make sure that they're in there, even if we don't hear them that well. Yeah, so we're going to put that same EQ on there to make sure it interacts correctly. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that the finale chorus there with everything in it. You can kind of hear them in there, or at least I can hear. They're not loud enough for my taste, but they're close. We know we've set it up so that we can do it right when we get that far. Okay, so let's talk pianos. We've got 3 tracks in here that we are looking at. The actual piano, these are all MIDI, by the way, so Sam does record this for real. So this is still a human playing on a MIDI controller. It looks like a keyboard. I don't think there's really any easy way for me to show you this. Yeah, let me see here, maybe. Here we go. So my screen here isn't in real time, so I'm not sure what's going on here. But you can see that this is essentially a full 88 key keyboard. It's really just a MIDI controller, though. It doesn't have any sounds on its own. It is completely dependent on what the computer is saying the sound is. So Sam really played all of this stuff, but it is MIDI. We'll bring this back over here to the mixers. And again, I can't see real well if this is actually pointed at the right thing, so hopefully it is. Okay, now here my YouTube screen is catching up to what I was saying a second ago. So did I point this at the keyboard in any sort of meaningful way? Yeah. Yeah, you can kind of see what that is. Okay, so yeah, that's what played every bit of keyboards you hear all over this. The pianos, the organs, the strings, the synths, again, were all played by Sam for real, but it is MIDI being used. So on this, we've got the piano and we've got the 2 organs. Yeah, I didn't set that camera up too bad back on the mixers. 88 key MIDI keyboard drills. Yeah. Honestly, this thing wasn't that expensive. I don't remember how much it was, but if you buy a MIDI controller instead of a keyboard, it's quite a bit cheaper. If you've got a computer that'll handle the sounds, you might as well. Okay, we've got our piano, we've got 2 organs, we've got a piano reverb track that we want to check out, and then we've got our master track. Now, there's very few points where any of these are playing together, so we may not need to compress the piano's master. Because there's no reason to compress the master channel if there's not 2 things playing at the same time. Now, I do think the 2 organs end up playing at the same time at one point. Yes, they do, but a very short period, so it's debatable whether we need that. I don't think that the individual channels need to be messed with. I think they're okay as is. The piano sounds good. The 2 organs sound good. They don't need to be further compressed or anything. Let's kind of take a look at how those sound in solo. Here's the piano. And this is a sound that's built right into Logic. This is the Steinway Grand Piano preset that's in Logic. Just sounds fantastic. And there Sam is following the riff that the rhythm guitars are playing, which is super neat. Yeah, so that's going to be something we're going to need to be careful about in volume automation. Another thing I want to remember, so you guys can help me remember this when we get to volume automation, in chorus 2, the guitars stop playing that riff, and Sam kind of takes it over. So in chorus 2, so we definitely need to turn that piano up when we come back for volume automation so that it can be clearly heard. That riff is still present in there. But that was the intention even during writing. We want Sam to kind of take over that riff while we're just hitting big open power chords. We also have 2 organs in here. This is what's happening at the very beginning of the song. This also is Logic stock, I believe. Oops, I have soloed the wrong things. We want these 2. This is also stock Logic. I think this is the heavy metal organ, I think. I love that little whammy bend. Yeah. And then the second organ comes in with a lower octave, I think, later on. Yeah, super neat. So, yeah, honestly, we may be able to just leave these as is, other than I want to check out some of those reverbs. I don't think any of those need to be compressed on their own. The only spot where there are 2 of them in this grouping playing together is that spot with the organ, and it already doesn't sound any louder than the previous section. So, no need to compress. I don't think we need to multi-press. Let's set up that reverb channel and just kind of leave it at that. Let's take a look at the Space Designer. The Space Designer is a built-in Logic preset for reverb that I just love. It's got so many neat presets that you can look at, stuff that sounds normal, and then you got these warped effects that just sound super weird that are super neat. It's not going to be appropriate in this. We also don't need a really big, we don't want the piano to sound like it's in a big grand ballroom or anything like that. That reverb would just kind of get in the way of everything else that's going on. So let's take a look at some small spaces. Maybe just not usually a fan of the small rooms. Let's take a look at the hall. How about this ambience hall? Just kind of take a look and see what that is. So over here on our mixer, this number 6 that's all the way down is this reverb send. So as soon as we bring it up, we'll hear it. I've still got it in solo. Jump back to where there actually is piano. Let's take a listen. Yeah, that's a pretty neat effect. I don't know if we're actually going to hear that all that well, at least in the context of this song, but I do like what it's doing to it. I don't think there's a need to check any other presets. I think we're okay there. Let's also make sure that this reverb isn't going to get too boomy by throwing an EQ before it and doing a kind of a low-sloped high-pass filter. So we're going to go clear up to 150, but nice big slope here. So we're getting rid of low end on the piano channel before it hits that reverb so that our reverb isn't adding too much mud to the mix. This should theoretically allow us to push it louder in the song without it getting in the way of things. But let's turn on everything. Obviously, we don't want to set the reverb value in solo. That's not really any help. We have no idea how the rest of the song's context fits around it. So let's check that. And again, I think it'll be okay if we can't really clearly hear this reverb. This is something that's going to add a little bit of ambience, but it's not ultra important to the song. The piano already sounds okay as is, so let's just kind of see what we hear.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what is indifference?
Yeah, I'm good with that. That will also help us in future songs where the piano is more prominent. We've got this consistency in the piano sound, right? So we use this reverb every time we have a piano as long as it's appropriate, and we have consistency across the songs. Will we super clearly hear it? Maybe not, but that's okay. Don't think we need to do anything to the master channel. Let's take a look at the orchestra stuff. Now, this orchestra is also MIDI. Naturally, we have a mixture here. Most of this orchestra was recorded with the East-West Opus plugin, which is pretty okay. It works better in other situations, I think, than for what we are trying to use it for here. If you're just trying to make like a movie score or something that's mostly focused on the orchestral elements, I think that thing is fantastic. I'm not sure if we will use it again in AfterWinter stuff. It's just a little bit too meant to be the center focus to easily slot into a metal song. So I don't think it's bad. I think it's okay. It's usable, certainly. But we did switch over to what we had used on Paramnesia. So the solo violin, the two solo violins, and the cello were the Philharmonic from Miroslav, which is what we used all over Paramnesia, including the big orchestral arrangement at the beginning of A Missing Piece. That was all Miroslav. We already knew it worked. It worked good. East-West was supposed to be better, but again, I don't really want to criticize it because, I think it would work really well for its intended purpose, which is orchestral-focused things. Trying to get it to sit in with a metal band. Just okay. Oh, yeah, Cody's all his string stuff is from Contacts Bundle. Yeah. Yep. Fantastic stuff. Good stuff. The first thing that we are going to start with on this, and I'm gonna take a look here at my note with the mix process. I've recently created a note with my mix process so that I can try and maintain consistency for myself. I can remember things better. I can also remember where I was in a mix by taking these numbered steps over here, and when I'm going to take a break for a little while, I can put one of these numbers in a note over here so I know where I was, because I pretty often forget. So if we go down to sound detailing the orchestra... Here we go. Try a mid-only cut of 5 dB at 400 hertz. This should slightly widen the sound and make more room for other instruments, allowing you to push the orchestral tracks higher in volume. This is a Nealeigh trick. This is 100% the guy who produced Periphery. He's the bassist of Periphery. He produced some Haken albums. I think I've sung his praises in other episodes of this too. Definitely one of the quintessential names in modern metal production, this guy, and I saw him do this in something, and it seemed like the sort of thing I would like. Being able to push orchestral tracks louder without them being too loud. So a 5 decibel cut at 400 hertz in the middle only. This is the trick here, and this is something that I had not really used on EQs before. We have kind of 3 channels, the middle, the left, and the right. So we are not removing anything from the left channel or the right channel is going to be the full quality strings as you're used to hearing them. Only in the middle, we're doing this big old kind of like mid or low mid cut so that there's less space going on there. It pushes the orchestra. It makes them sound more like they're out in the left and right, which is what I referred to in a different episode of regarding widening them differently. Pushes them more to the left and right, gives the center more room for stuff like vocals, the bass guitar, the pianos, all sorts of other things. This seems like a really good move to make here. Yeah, Cody says Nealeigh gets so much praise, but it still doesn't feel like it's enough. The man is a god. Yeah. I mean, what he does in modern metal production is just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. I've watched so many of his tutorials on different things. And don't get me wrong, Periphery is not necessarily my style of music. It's not really my thing, but I think his work is absolutely fantastic. So we should probably we want the orchestra reverb in here as well we need to put in. As far as the rest, we do have a compressor on most of these channels, and this is Logic's stock compressor set to the Platinum Orchestral preset, which is something that I usually like. It flattens the orchestra pretty well, and then we can just do level matching. That's all been done in the tracking phase. Don't really need to do it anymore. We do want to do some extra EQ on these low strings because, again, we want to be very careful to make sure that anytime he's playing low strings, we can push it to a respectable volume without it starting to cover the bass drum or the bass guitar, which is something that it super easily can do. So since we didn't have low pianos, we don't have to worry about making room for those. Everything he did on the piano is fairly high. So on these low strings channels, we're going to go ahead and target 60, which is where the bass drum is, 80, which is where the bass guitar is, and then let's try pushing this a little bit at 120. Let these low strings take up 120. So we're going to do a 3 decibel cut at 60, a 4 decibel cut at 80, and let's try a 3 decibel boost at 120. Ooh. I lost a couple of viewers right when I said that. People do not like the 120 decibel boost, I guess. Although I guess this is a little behind what I'm actually watching, so let it be known. Chat did not like the 120 decibel boost. Okay, let's take a listen to what we're dealing with here. This is Low Strings 1. This is the channel we were queuing. Yeah. It doesn't feel like we're losing anything by making those cuts, which is pretty important. So I think we're good to go there. Let's copy that across the other low strings channels. We shouldn't need to do that for the high strings, but we will go ahead and make that little cut at 1200. The same one that I was mentioning earlier to make room for vocals. Whoops. Do just a tiny little 1.5 decibel cut at 1200 to help vocals on those high strings. Yeah, chat doesn't like low mids. I mean, who does like low mids? Let's just get rid of them. Let's put an EQ on the master bus and just cut the low mids out of this thing. We really want it to sound pro. That's what we're all about here. That we're picketing the low mids. No more low mids. Okay, so that takes care of our low strings and high strings channels. I don't think we need to mess with the fade-in orchestra or the orchestra hit, which only happen right before the very first chorus near the beginning of the song. Those don't argue with anything else that's going on there. We can kind of listen for that here. Yeah, that's fine as is. We do want to take a listen to the French horns track, which is only happening near the end of the song. It's really boosting that that melody that Sam introduces near the end. And Add a limiter and throw that threshold all the way back. If it isn't a block, it ain't pro. Yeah, the loudness wars. We got to win the loudness wars. Oh, guys, give me just 1 second real fast. Sorry about that. I needed to check. I wasn't 100% sure if my 6 o'clock student was coming. They were not on my calendar, but I didn't remember them telling me they weren't coming, so I must have just forgot. Just wanted to make sure they weren't sitting out there wondering what was going on. Okay, so let's take a listen to this French horn track and see if there's anything kind of impeding those low frequencies or the high frequencies that we should cut. Yeah. So it does sound like we ought to do that 1200 cut on that one. Might hit the vocals there. There's also kind of an annoying extra high frequency I want to try and find. Yeah, it's probably up here in this like 10K region. Let's see. Let's see if Soothe can do something about this. Some of the names of the presets in this thing crack me up. Orchestral nose job? What? I imagine it's trying to get rid of those kind of like honking low mids, if you will. Brassy harsh seems like it maybe ought to do something good. There we go. Yeah, it's not really hitting the frequencies I was hoping it would. Maybe we need to pop this guy up. What is this? This is our high cut. That's why it wouldn't move up. What's this over here? Band 4. Yes, let's pop this guy up in the 10 to 12K region and see if we can get some of this. Oh, well, yeah, the high cut should be pulling some of that out. I shouldn't need to soothe that. It should be pulling some of it out. Let's pull that a little closer in. Doesn't seem to be affecting it that much more. That was creepy. I don't know if this mic was good enough to catch that door creak. I don't know if you guys just heard my door creak. That was straight up out of a horror movie right there. I wondered if I was going to get axe murdered there for a second. Yeah, I definitely want to push that pretty loud in the mix. I like that. I like the melody. I like the sound. Especially combined with the orchestra stuff. Oh, Dad says he misses his French horn. Yeah, absolutely. Man, if your body still knows how to play that, if you got one, we could stop MIDIing them and actually have real French horn on this stuff. That'd be super neat. Cody says, I've said it forever, the studio is haunted. It's got to be, right? It's been around forever and ever and ever. It's got to be haunted. With ghosts who are tired of hearing all sorts of weird original music being written forever and ever. Okay, so let's kind of take a peek here at our orchestra reverb. I do, you know what? Having said that, I do think I want on the cello here. No, you know what? I changed my mind. The Ghost of Nefertiti. Yeah. I wonder what she'd think of all this stuff if she would stay far away from this room while this sort of stuff is going on. Yes. I was going to put that low cut on the cello, but it never needs to interact with the bass guitar or the bass drum, so it's not necessary. We can leave those alone. Let's talk about our orchestra. Why did I say it like that? Orchestra reverb. Now, I had an orchestra reverb that I really liked on Paramnesia. A big mistake that I made, however, was that I had it on for the whole album. It should have been on the level that it was only for the big orchestral piece at the beginning of A Missing Piece. That's when when the orchestra was kind of front and center, that's where the reverb really shined. Everywhere else, it added a whole bunch of unnecessary mud to that track. So we want to be very careful that we don't go too crazy with the orchestra reverb this time, because I do almost kind of want this to sound like this is in a big hall, a big reverby hall, but we don't want this reverb to add a bunch of nasty mud and cover up all the things we've worked so hard, like the bass drum and the bass guitar, to make sure that they're actually sitting in there. So we're going to go ahead and open up that Space Designer again. And let's take a look at some medium spaces for this. I'm tempted to go for large spaces, but I feel like that's going to be too much. Bright Hall's probably not a bad idea. I want to check out that Midnight Hall because it's probably kind of dark, which would be neat. We don't want too much high end on this. Let's check out the Midnight Hall. It sounds neat. Let's see what this does. Horn a little bit louder. Not really hearing that reverb much. It's a very subtle reverb, which maybe isn't necessarily a bad thing, but let's try some other ones. How about Nice Hall? Yeah, so some of the problem here is that it's long drawn out notes. If we hear some shorter notes, we can probably judge that reverb a little better. It's got a nice tail on it. Doesn't seem like too much. At least in solo, it doesn't seem like too much. Let's roll with that for now, and we can change that later if we want to. I don't want to limit the orchestra going into this to begin with, but I do want to put an EQ on after the Space Designer, I think, and notch out a little bit of low end. Let's make a nice sweeping high pass up to 100. Again, not like a real hard cut or anything. And let's also pull out 70 hertz. Let's do that 3 decibel cut at 70 hertz just to kind of help with that, the bass guitar, the bass drum, help to make sure that this reverb specifically does not get in the way of that or start adding in low frequencies that we took out by EQing the other instruments. So we definitely want to check to see how this sounds in the context of everything.
You're not following commands. Just have a person help them understand.
weren't kidding about that mid-cut really letting you push the orchestra louder. I just about can't get it loud enough. Let's reduce that cut just a hair. Let's go to -3 instead of -5.
Don't have that much time. Should've stopped and actually read the signs. We've been getting further away. Crumbling the message we convey. We can't annoy them until we're late. Can't berate them until they agree. Why can't we see the clues? They won't think of God. They'll remember you.
You're not following command. Each other person hope they'll understand. Threat of a consequence.
I think we're going to add a gain plug-in here. Let's go ahead and gain this up by like 10. That cut really cuts a lot. That cuts a lot. We're going to put it at -4, but now that we've got that gained up, we can take this down and kind of mix those back in there.
Threat of a consequence. They don't believe exists. Won't change any minds. Your words have been dismissed.
This is a really careful balance here. Okay, next we are going to go ahead and compress. We're going to compress after the gain plug-in so that we still have a good amount of signal coming into this compressor. Because we have a lot of tracks. We have a lot of tracks going into this one master channel. So in this case, again, we want to try and kind of smooth out. When he's playing big chords, it's loud. Excuse me. When he's playing isolated notes, it's a little bit quieter. We want to try and get that a little bit evened out. We want totally soft knee here. Let's take a look at our attack setting. Okay, so we're getting that initial transient. Oop. I think in the future, I think I want to try the 5 decibel cut at 400 before we do our context mix. Come on, brain. I think I want to try that cut before we do our context mix, like as one of the very first things. That really does make a pretty big difference on how everything is balanced. I feel like we've like pretty severely unbalanced the way the strings interact with everything. We may need to pull all of those down and bring them back up. now that that's on there. Something I need to keep in mind for the future, for sure.
Fail to show the answer. They're driven to search elsewhere. We need to reach them.
You can definitely hear it better, though. I mean, you can hear it way better than you could before, so that's super neat. That's another kind of... I have very few regrets regarding Paramnesia. If there are regrets regarding it, it's usually about some decision I made in the mixing process. I feel like there's a lot of points you can't hear what Sam is doing very well on that album. Not everywhere. It's not like he's unfairly represented, but I wish you could hear him just generally better when other stuff is going on. That right there would have helped a lot. Maybe when this album is done and there's less on the table, if I'm looking to continue streaming stuff instead of disappearing again, a full album remix of Paramnesia might be in store, just out of curiosity, more than anything else. Just how much better can we make it sound with modern techniques? Okay, so moving on next is our synth stuff. And again, we've only got one channel here. In this particular song, we're not counting the leads here. This is rhythm synth, if you will. He's just following little runs that are going on in that verse. There's only one channel, so we don't really need to multipress or compress on the master channel. I don't think we need to worry about slotting out that 1200 for the vocal. I don't think that lead's not jumping in too often. I do think I hear a couple of things here, but we can do this on the actual channel instead of the master. That's interesting. Okay, so first off, did you see all that low end going on there? We don't need that. We don't need all that low end on this. This isn't a low end part. There's also, I think I'm getting a little bit too much right around that 400. I'm trying not to use my eyes. I know there's spikes right there, but that's based on the fundamental note he's playing, basically. It's just a little bit boxy, maybe is the right word. I've never been good at those descriptive terms. I'm hearing a little bit too much low mid. Just call it what it is. Yeah, I think that was perfect. That cleaned it up a little bit. Probably stand to bring that down just a hair. It doesn't need to jump out at you. Just needs to add a little. I think that's perfect. Okay, so we are nearing the end of what I'm able to do in this chunk. I've got a student here at 6:30, just here in a few minutes. But it must be really nice out today or something. I don't know what's going on. I almost got wiped out of students today. So this 6:30 student that I've got is my last for the day, so I'm planning on coming back and streaming again from 7 to 9. So we'll, here soon, we'll be wrapping this one up. But by all means, if you want to continue hanging out, jump back in here at 7, and we'll do another couple hours. I have something really big, a bunch of rehearsals for a production I'm involved in starting next week. Those rehearsals are, and I should be practicing for that, but I don't want to. I want to do this. I'm excited about this. I like how it's coming along. I like hanging out with all you guys and talking about this stuff. I did do some practicing on that. I've done some practicing every day. I meant to spend more free time practicing, but it's fine. It's coming fine. Let's get this thing as far done as we can. So, yeah, you know what? We've got about 5 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming on. Yeah, Cody says remind me at 7. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Let's talk a little bit about what we've got coming up next. Our next targets are the leads. So the leads master is looks like 5 channels. We've got the 2 guitar leads that happen near the beginning of the song. We've got the channel that has the actual guitar solo on it. And then we've got the 2 tracks that are Sam's keyboard solo. So we are talking about how to get all of these things sitting in the mix where we want them without compromising how they sound. I know based on listen-throughs that we've been doing that Sam's synth sits better than my guitar solo at the moment in the mix, so we need to try and get those things to be similar. We're also probably going to be multi-pressing and compressing, particularly so that when the dual part of the solo happens, when Sam and I are both playing, that's not naturally louder than when just one of us is playing. So we'll be definitely jumping into that, getting those to sit. Then we're on to the lead vocals, which will take just a little bit, won't be too bad. There's a lot less to do in the background vocals, and then we're getting into volume automation. So we are getting through this. This is what? Is this episode 3 or 4? It's one of those. They've all been like almost 2 hours-ish or an hour and a half or 2 hours-ish long. It takes a while to do this, right? Especially if you're really digging in. If you really care about what you're doing and it's not just like, yeah, it's fine, throw it out there. So it takes a minute, but I think it's sounding really good. It's sounding awesome, and everything that we do from this point on is going to just keep on adding layers of this sounding really good and everything working together. That's something I've really excited about. One of the reasons I've been really excited to dive into this is that I at least feel like I've upped my game recently in terms of getting things to slot together better, which is something that I had almost no experience in just a few years ago. It was just based on sound, and if I couldn't get it to sound the way I wanted, a lot of times I was left sitting there going, I don't know what to do with this. I think that's gotten a lot better now. I've learned some tips and tricks from lots of different people. We are coming up on one of the biggest game changers for me once we get to the end of the sound detailing for each individual channel. One of the biggest game-changing things for me that I learned that I'm really excited to jump into and see. So, yes, student at 6:30. I will be back on here from like 7 to 9 probably. So hopefully, if y'all are interested in hanging out some more, then we'll be back at 7. So as per usual, all the usual closing stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching right now, if you watched earlier, if you're watching this later and it's not currently live, if you devoted any time in your day to listening to me ramble and checking out music that I was involved in writing, everybody in the band in AfterWinter poured their heart and soul into this, just like we did Paramnesia. It's a ton of work. This album has a lot of special meaning for us too, because we lost our vocalist Jerry last year. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of his passing, actually. So this album has been really cathartic for us, super important for us. So anytime you devote to checking it out, we really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much. I will catch you here in about half an hour or so. We'll see you later.